back to Unleash. I'm your host, Jared Beeler. I want to talk about something a little different today. And a lot of times I do this, whether it's threads of deceit or something else, because if I end up talking about it later, there's a question on what's going on. It's something you can fall back on where it was discussed or bring it into light, or if it's going to be something I'm going to use a little bit later. But this is going to be a little bit different than usual, and but just bear with me because I want to bring something to light that I see working in the background coming forward, and I'm going to call this the loading dimension. Okay, it sounds a little weird right now, but I'm going to show you how this is taking place. How we see it in movies and stuff all the time, but people glance over it without a thought. Well, it's actually taking place in real life, and why I believe that it's going to be one of the big bribes when the antichrist shows his face, not only for free energy, but the ease of things, and a whole different way of life, unlimited resources per se, and how this is going to buy people off in more ways. And one of the things to watch out with, how it also falls into manifestations and things like that, and why you're to stay away from that stuff. But let's get started. Just bear with me here. In the movie The Matrix, you got Neo, and of course you guys have probably seen it. It's an old 1999 film or whatever, and I've discussed it in different things before because there's a real resemblance to this way of life. As a Christian, you're unplugged from the Matrix, whereas in the Matrix, in the movie, anybody can be inhabited the same way with real life. If you're not a Christian, you can be demon-possessed. And but in the movie, they have a loading scene where they can supply up before they go into the Matrix, and they can load anything they want, bazookas, guns, anything that they need. And it's kind of like an interesting thing. But we see this more often than you realize. You guys have probably all seen Star Trek II: Next Generation, or the original ones, and they have replicators in them where you reach in and you get your cup and or your food or whatever it is that you want, and that's how they get their food on the ship. So they don't have to store food; it doesn't go rotten and things like that. And what it is they can load the ship up with certain elements, and those elements can be changed and replicated into whatever dish that they want. Oh, excuse me. And but that is using elements already and changing them. What I'm talking about, or what I'm going to be talking about, is something completely different. It is getting your supplies from a whole other dimension. What does that look like? What can we see this in movies? Well, in the movie Thor, when Thor's fighting his sister, she comes out of the dimension or whatever, and they suit up. And right there, in that very point, they're changing in an instant. And out of her hand, she can throw out a knife or a sword in an instant. But where is it coming from? It's not coming out of a sheath. They're pulling these weapons and suits and things like that literally out of another dimension that's holding it, a type of manifestation, almost like a replicator. But they're doing it at will. And I see this happening more and more as I watch things that are coming to light. Not only with the AI that was taking place earlier this year, I believe it was this year or it was last year, where they were discussing it when they were talking about it, and the new supercomputers that look like they're spelled demon from the top down, that they have to keep at sub temperatures that are so cold it's like colder than space for them to operate. But they're literally multi-dimensional, and you can hear them even speaking, as this guy right here that I'm going to show you is talking about.
Physics, but there is a very clear prediction that our most successful theory of nature makes, and that is that there are an enormous number, mind-bogglingly large number, of parallel realities, as real as this one, that have different consistent histories. So imagine a world where all of the laws of physics as we know them are obeyed, but different decisions were made along the way. Different decisions at the level of tiny microscopic particles, different decisions all the way up to what you chose to eat for lunch, and whether you chose to come to this session or not. Quantum mechanics makes a very specific prediction that all of those are as real as the thing that you remember. And this is bizarre, because we don't see those other things. But science has reached the point now where we can build machines that exploit those other worlds. And quantum computers are perhaps the most exciting of all of these that we have within, or almost within our grasp right now. So this is what they look like. There are two of them. These are from our lab in Burnaby in British Columbia. From the outside, they look like giant black monoliths, big metal boxes, about 10 feet on a side, 12 feet tall. And they are powered, they have a fridge inside them, a refrigerator that cools these chips to almost absolute zero. Just a wisp, a fraction of a degree above absolute zero. Hundreds of times colder than interstellar space. Amongst the coldest and most isolated and extreme conditions that humans have ever been able to engineer. These fridges, interestingly enough, which are called pulse tube dilution refrigerators, have a thing called a pulse tube, which emits a sound roughly once per second, which sounds eerily like a heartbeat. So if you have the opportunity to stand next to one of these machines, it is an awe-inspiring thing, at least for me. It feels like an altar to an alien god. They really are impressive machines. At the heart of this big box is a tiny chip about the size of your thumbnail. And on this chip resides all of the wonder and magic that makes this thing go. I'm not going to describe in any mathematical detail how it all works, but let me give you an analogy. In quantum mechanics, there's this concept that a thing can exist in two states which are mutually exclusive at the same time, quote unquote. And I'm using those words because the English language was developed before we had concepts to describe what these things actually are doing. But I'm going to give you a roundabout way of understanding this. Imagine that there really are parallel universes out there, and now imagine you have two that are exactly identical in every respect, all the way out to the horizon as far as we can see, down to the last little atomic detail of every single thing, with only one difference. And that's the value of a little thing called a qubit on this chip, which is a contraction of quantum bit. And that qubit is very much like a bit or a transistor in a conventional computer. It has two distinct physical states, which we call 0 and 1 for bit. In a conventional computer, these are mutually exclusive. That device is either one or the other, and never anything else. In a quantum computer, that device can be in this strange situation where these two parallel universes have a nexus, a point in space where they overlap. And when you increase the number of these devices, every time you add one of these qubits, you double the number of these parallel universes that you have access to, until such time when you get to a chip like this, which has about 500 of these bits, you have something like 2 to the 500th power of these guys living in that chip. So the way I think about it is that the shadows of these parallel worlds overlap with ours. And if we're smart enough, we can dive into them and grab their resources and pull them back into ours to make an effect in our world. Now, this may sound very odd to you and bizarre, and in fact, I am using language that a normal theoretical physicist probably wouldn't use, but this is, what I'm telling you is absolutely correct and in line with the way that these things actually work.
And what they're doing is they're literally hinting at this idea that they're going to be able to pull supplies, things that they need, unlimited resources from another dimension, all right, that we're going to call, for the sake of this, because I have no idea what to call it, the loading dimension, all right? Because it's similar to the Matrix in the loading phase they have, that they can get what they need before they go in. And just the other day, I was listening to Stephen Greer for a second. It popped up on a video. And what was he talking about? Open source platform, and how the aliens have technology where they can reverberate or use different things, sources, to pull or manifest objects and things that they need supplies from another dimension. This is exactly what we're talking about right here.
What you have just heard, I would say a handful of people on Earth know, even in classified projects. It's highly compartmented. This is really way past TS-SCI, top secret special compartmented intelligence. Friends, let me listen carefully. Anyone listening, do not think you're going to be off the radar of the sector of the Intelligence Committee working tasked with this issue. No level of encryption, no level of patents, no level of spy versus spy talking in gibberish code over a phone is going to frustrate their knowing everything you're doing in real time. And the only protection there is strategic protection, which is massive disclosure and public transparency of everything you are doing. The quickest way to get killed doing this stuff is to do it secretively. If you do it in full view, you're completely safe. Why? Because the people who are in these covert programs, the last thing they want to do is be caught red-handed in a wet works operation. Wet works are assassinations. A wet works operation with the whole world watching. That's why I'm still alive. You squeeze the toothpaste out of the tube so hard and so fast no one can put it back in, and the whole world knows about it at each step. Do you want to know how ETs make things? Should we get into that? Because this is actually a consciousness-assisted technology. This microphone and all this stuff has been, we cut down a tree for this. The metal was dug out of the earth, you know, Neanderthal-like, and smelted down and made into metal, and then it's riveted together in bolts and screws. Transdimensional interstellar civilizations, which means the ones that are here and have exceeded the speed of light, have mastered the sciences of transdimensional manufacturing. To wit, they are able to create a standing resonant sonic energy field that is almost like an architectural blueprint of something, like 3D printing, but this is like 4 or 5D printing. Get it? And in that resonant field, then materialize the object, the spacecraft, the piece of clothing, from the transdimensional interface, energetic interface, with subatomic space-time matter, so that the molecules, the atoms, the structures, everything in that is coming through into this dimension of 3D from that deeper interface from another dimension, an energy field, and it just materializes it. Now the word materializes, no one thinks what that means. It's to make material, but you're assembling it from these elementals. I call them the elementals that are subatomic, and then way in past the even 0 point energy field, which is infinite energy, as Tesla said. But in that pluripotent state, you can recruit pure gold, pure platinum, iron, any metal, and biologicals, what have you. So you can then manifest that. I'm trying to articulate something that's a very advanced science in lay terms so that you can follow it. But going back to this concept of consciousness-assisted technology, so if you're connected and you see what you want to manifest, you can connect to a technology that creates this resonant and sonic, deep sonic field that then materializes that object. So not initially, but say, I don't know how many years into the future, we're not even going to need to be having mining operations or manufacturing or anything that damages the earth. It will simply be this kind of high-tech 4D 5D manufacturing. Forget 3D manufacturing.
And then you can hear him talking about it, and I don't follow Stephen Greer or anything like that. I think the guy's got so many demons in him, it's unbelievable, in his New Age quest for spirituality. The guy's just been completely manifested with demons and stuff like that, if he's not a reptile himself. But the point is that closer and closer that we get towards this end, this event of tribulation, the Antichrist showing his face, the more we're going to start seeing some crazy stuff. And it's not like it hasn't been around since the dawn of time, ancient Babylon and stuff like that. What do you think's happening when Moses is in front of the Pharaoh and the wizards and their priests of Egypt that are using demons and stuff like that throw down their staves that are turning into serpents, cobras? This is multi-dimensional stuff. For any simpletons out there, my point is magic has been real for a very long time. The illusion is that it is an illusion. And all the stage stuff that's happened back in the day in the 80s and stuff like that, David Copperfield, yeah, that was a lot of stage stuff. But things started to change later on in 2000 and stuff like that. Chris Angel and David Blaine were a couple of the first. But now it is just everywhere. You see it all the time. Every Joe Schmo that wants to live his life of vanity and he doesn't care that he'll go to hell forever is willing to sell his soul for power. And you see it on America's Got Talent and stuff like that. These magicians are doing things that are just, it's impossible to do. And the disguise is an illusion. And if you say that, then people don't freak out, because if they were to know that it's real, it would change everything. Exactly what's not meant to be changed right now, because people are supposed to be learning exactly the way that the forces of darkness want them to, and not too soon. Because, as I've said before, if the whole thing was shown and come to light, Satan, the war against him, the government working with demons, the whole conspiracy with that, God being real and everything like it, could change the game. Millions of people could turn to God instantly, and it's too dangerous for them, so they do everything they can. One of the best lies that they've come up with is Satan isn't real, and of course he is. But it's very interesting. I want to show you another clip here. This guy's an Asian kid or whatever, but one of many, many, many that are out there now doing it. And you've seen this clip. He's pulling things out of dimensions right in front of him. This gigantic 3-foot sandwich and stuff like that. And you can see how similar it is to what you watched in Thor and what's taking place with that. And it's almost identical. One being a sandwich, another being a weapon, one being a movie, one being reality in front of people. Can they pull other things? I think that just about anything can be manifested out of there, but for the sake of what he's doing, he's trying not to look threatening or anything like that, and it's only for his own glory. But you can see a few different tricks here. You can see how realistic it is. There's nothing staged or anything like that. When they're doing these tricks on the street, they're having the help of demons, and there's things that are taking place. And in the clip, of course, in Thor, Thor's sister is fighting the whole legion of Asgard, and she's throwing out swords left and right, and it's coming quick. Go ahead and watch this. See, there's no limit to it. It's like an unlimited resource as fast as possible. Can they do it that fast in real life? Well, watch this. see the magician on the stage. It's been around for a long time. Japanese magic or Chinese, whatever it is, changing the mass. It's almost instantaneously. And is it happening instantaneously for them? Or are they going into a dimension where time freezes and they have time to change it? I don't know. I do know that I've seen a couple witches online, and when I looked inside them, the demon that was inside there, time froze. Time froze for the duration of what needed to be said to me, whether it was to bring up childhood smells or temptations or anything like that, or the constant bribing of Satan to pull me away from God. But it happened in an instant. And same thing when I was told in 2018 on the Feast of Trumpets that it's for the second coming and not the rapture. And it's interesting because that happened in an absolute split second. But in the dimension and my memory and all that took place, it was about 15 to 20 seconds inside there. So it's very interesting. So I'm not sure on that. It's nothing that I transverse or have anything to do with. But it is interesting to see it, and it's been taking place for years and years. But as I watch more of these mainstream things with computers and New Agers and stuff like that, the information, the technology or whatever that they're trying to put into a technology, being demon magic, what it actually is, or fallen angel stuff, is it's coming more to light. And I absolutely believe that it's going to be a bribery that takes place during the tribulation with the Antichrist. For unlimited resources and powers and vanity and everything else, if people can manifest what they want and eat and stuff like that, it would solve all kinds of crises, including food, water, and other things like that people might need. And if the Antichrist brings it out, of course they would love him for it. Will this happen? It's hard to say. But it's not the first time that I've heard about this stuff, not the first at all. And I've seen it pop up here and there. I listened to Steve Quayle a while back, I think it was last year or something like that, and he was talking about UFOs and the suits, and how when the aliens, from what he had been told, when they cut them open, the suits have no seams, no zippers or anything like that. They're literally able to stand in a portal of a type or a platform where the suit is beamed on or manifested on them with no seams or zippers. And when they want to take it off, they literally stand on the platform again and it's removed. And I believe that's the same sort of thing. It's dimensional. It's coming out of this loading dimension where anything that you need or want can be manifested, and literally down to the suit, maybe the ship, the UFO around them. It's hard to say, but with technology like that, what's the limit to this? Is there a limit? How big can you manifest something? How big can something be made? If it is a technology that's being used or a manipulation of a dimension, how big can it be? Can the ships being made or created be made miles wide? Could there be millions of them? Is there a possibility to that? Yeah, totally. When I heard the interesting story about a type of engine that was down in Area 51 in the late 70s. I think I've talked about it before in one of the videos earlier, but the guy was talking about he had a replica of it that he first made on his desk, but he had bolts and rivets and things like this. This thing was seamless, almost as if it was growing. Now, was it growing? There's a possibility that DNA is being manipulated into material objects, rocks, and things like that, where it can be grown into shapes created from that DNA for that. It could be a type of manifestation or whatever, but it's hard to say. But it's like living engines, living ships, and it's very crazy. It's very crazy stuff. And more or less, I just wanted to talk about that in this video. It's something that I have wanted to talk about for a while, but I haven't had the chance to. And I thought this would be a good time, especially after I saw a couple of the videos. Stephen Gerwin kind of kicked it off, and I was like, okay, that's it. I think I need to touch on this subject, just so people know what's going on. Because if this stuff comes out later on, you might, or somebody might literally have a question, like, how is this even possible? Where does it come from, you know? And you need to know that it is evil, and it's totally has been the whole time. It's manipulated for that. What about us? Are we going to be able to tap into this as we are Christians or when we're with God? What about now? Should we be tapping into something like this, a type of manifestation? Absolutely not. God is to be our sole provider about everything. We go to Him, all right? If He says no, or if He says suffer, or if He says you're going to be short on food, or it's going to hurt right now, it's our responsibility to listen to that and listen to what our Master tells us. There is nothing about this life that was supposed to be easy or a good time or a piece of cake. It's a test. It has been the whole time, and it's very, very difficult. And if you're walking with God, the test can be very, very tough at times. And these ideas of manifestations, this is why I've warned against staying away from the Book of Thomas and other things like that. Manipulation's the secret. The Oprah Winfrey nonsense and all that other stuff that has to do with it. These manifestations, are they real? Of course it's real. It's totally real. Otherwise there would be no desire for it whatsoever. The whole thing's real. Magic's real. This dimensional loading phase, everything, it's totally real. But does that make it okay? No, absolutely not. The draw to it is the draw away from God, or to stay away from things that give us power from demonic things and other realms where we're going to for vanity or self-greed or loathing or anything like that of ourselves, and we're not to mess around with that stuff whatsoever. So when people do and they get brought into it, or they read something and it tells them that it's okay or it's a secret or whatever else, it's drawing you into something that totally goes against what we're supposed to be. God's our provider, and we rely on Him. Now, is that going to change when we are in heaven? Let's think about that for a second. In heaven, I have no idea, honestly. I've heard stories where you can, put things for decoration and stuff like that in your house and then throw it in, and it just vanishes or whatever. Is that being pulled out of this dimension? Is that how God created the universe? Being able to use a dimension that He created that has unlimited supplies, basically like a Lego dimension, where you take what you want and you build with it. I don't know. I have no idea. It very well could be. It could change up everything. To fight an Armageddon with God, or what we're going to be able to do. Like I say, it goes past what most people can even comprehend. Your weapons that you may use literally could be manifested on an instant just with thought. Same with armor and everything else. It can be as quick as lightning, literally, and you can change for battle or whatever else. And we don't know if that's going to take place or not. But I have a feeling that it very well might. But until that time, until we're changed over to what we're going to be with God and into our final form that lasts forever and for eternity, what He's created for us, we're not to mess around with that kind of stuff. We're to rely on Him and to do His will. And when we pray for things, it's for His will. And we can ask for anything, if it's to help others and things like that. But when it starts getting into vanity, a lot of times He's going to say no. And if there's somebody out there that says that it's yes, that's not how God rolls at all. He would never do or give us something that's going to pull us away from Him, including abilities, right? For people out there that don't have gifts and stuff like that. He sees your heart. He sees who you are and stuff like that, and how quickly a man or woman can be corrupted. And if He knows this, He's not going to give you it, especially if He doesn't and you stay with Him until the end. He's going to do everything He can to make that happen, and because He doesn't want anybody to fail. Even though this is the hardest test ever created, He still does everything for us. And I've said it before to people, if God can look in your timeline and you're about to get into a car wreck and die, and normally you would, and He sees later on you clean up your act and walk with Him, do I think He'll keep you alive from that car wreck? I personally do. I think He fights for us more than anybody could possibly imagine. I don't think there will ever be an excuse when those stand in front of Him. He will show them every single thing that He did, how He fought for them, kept them alive to give them the chance, and they just kept rejecting Him. And there won't be any denying it or arguing it. It'll all be brought forward right in front of them, and they'll know the truth. And so it's that's what it is. But it's very interesting. I saw this picture. It was from the early '90s, I think, from Hubble or whatever, and. Yeah, it's kind of a mystery picture. I haven't been able to find it again or whatever, but it zoomed out on a galaxy, and in this picture, this galaxy, and it was discussed, of course, because they couldn't figure out what it was. It looks like a city, but the city itself is the size of a galaxy. It's bigger than anything you could possibly imagine. what is this? And it's out in space, and is this a type of creation that's out there? Is this the upper limits of what can be made? It's hard to say, but there's things that are just absolutely huge, and it's incredible. And I mean, this that blows a Dyson sphere, which is an energy collector that would be around the sun, or a sun, or a star, a theoretical idea. A city the size of a galaxy, I mean, that just blows that completely out of the water in size. It's astronomical. We can't even wrap our minds around it, the construction and stuff like that. And yet in this picture, that's kind of exactly what it looked like. Is that something out there that God's created? I mean, that sounds, from the measurements, bigger than New Jerusalem. It's really hard to tell. We don't know the things that he has planned and stuff like that, and or the other stuff that they have in store out there, the enemy that's going to use to deceive people, But it's always wise to be on guard for this stuff, which is why I talk about different things like that, because people can get caught up in things so quickly, especially if they don't know. And at least if I put some groundwork in for something that you've never heard about or thought about, but you've been seeing the whole time as it's coming more, hopefully you won't get swept into it. All right, stay away from manifestations and things like that. It's totally demonic. We're not to be messing with that stuff, no matter who's bringing it. Right, we're to rely on God all the time. And yes, it's going to make things harder. And yes, magic and manifestations, things like that, they are real. There's a reality to it, but it's not coming from anything good. It's coming from demonic activity, and you don't want to have anything to do with that. It's pure evil, all right? And it's only going to take you down a darker path that's going to destroy you. So I think that's kind of enough. Wrote down a few notes here. I think I talked on this subject. And it is different. It is crazy. You probably never thought about it or heard of it before or anything like that. But I wanted to at least kind of bring it out. I thought it was kind of important to talk about, especially as I watch more and more as it's starting to come into the light on something that they want to use, or a technology that's going to be here. And I definitely think it's going to be during the time of the Antichrist. And that time is very, very soon. Everything is so close to going on. Everything's right on schedule. I've never seen anything like it. I mean, we're so close, and I'm still looking at the spring here for this to kick off, but we'll find out like usual. But very interesting. But hopefully this helped, or shed some light on anything that maybe you guys have seen before, that you had questions about and stuff like that. Yeah, it's all totally real. But we see it in movies. People overlook it, don't even think about it and stuff like that. And the reality is, it's not just movie or anything like that. This is taking place in real life, and it has been for a very, very long time. And summoning demons and using them, and people selling their souls and stuff like that. It's been around for a long time, even though it might have went away for a while. It's definitely coming back now in the end times, and people will be seduced by lying wonders. And it's a total reality. So be cautious at all times. Remember, we live for God, and He's our supplier and our needs and stuff like that. And last time I checked, it wasn't for a rich, easy life. We were to carry our cross daily, and to give up the things of the world. And what's going to be given on the other side is going to be an extraordinary thing, and we don't quite comprehend what that is, but you won't be disappointed whatsoever, and it'll be worth the fight, even if it's hard right now. So hang in there and don't give up, and hopefully this sheds some light on an interesting subject. We'll call it the loading dimension. All right, God bless. I'll catch you next time in the Leashing. Bye.